Jared, the Killa Gorilla Cannonier, after suffering a recent loss to Israel Adesanya, is slowly working his way back up the division in hopes of another shot at the title. But the question is, can he get it done? In this video, we'll be covering how Jared Cannonier got to where he is now in the UFC and his road to potentially becoming the middleweight champion of the UFC. And make sure you stay until the end of the video to find out how Jared Cannonier is in a category of fighter that rarely comes by in mixed martial arts. Jared Cannonier's career in the UFC began in very early 2015. He would debut in the heavyweight division against Sean Jordan and facing the worst possible outcome. In the first round, he lost by a devastating knockout. The knockout and an injury would prompt a 1 year and 4 month layoff before his return. His second fight was booked against Israel Adesanya in Zagreb, Croatia, and the tables truly did turn, as in his second performance he would knock out Adesanya in the first round, also winning his first performance of the night bonus for the knockout. 8 months later, he would drop down a weight division to light heavyweight, and in the finale of the Tournament of Champions for the Ultimate Fighter, he would accumulate his second win and his first win by decision, also winning a Fight of the Night bonus, as he won unanimously after 3 5-minute rounds against Iwan Kudalaba. 3 months later, in February of 2017, his first true test would come upon him. At UFC 208, Jared faced Brazilian fighter Glover Teixeira, and it would be his second loss in the UFC, but this time by unanimous decision and as a light heavyweight. Jared's next fight would be a win against Nick Roerich, midway through the third round as he TKO'd Roerich. On July 7th in 2017, his win against Roerich would end up being his last win as a light heavyweight, as his next 2 fights would be both losses. One to a fighter who would go on to capture the light heavyweight belt later, and another who would lose a title fight to one of the greatest to step in the cage in John Jones by controversial decision. The two men would be Jan Blachowicz and Dominic Reyes, and on the 16th of December in 2017, when Jared faced Jan, he would lose by unanimous decision after 3 rounds in the cage. 5 months later, when Jared faced Reyes, he would lose 3 minutes into the first round by TKO, making his record 3-4 in the UFC. The TKO loss would lead Jared to making the choice to move down another weight class to middleweight, and it would be this choice that would turn around his career so far in the UFC. After debuting as a middleweight against David Branch, winning by TKO in the second round, he would have the opportunity to fight one of the middleweight GOATs in their home country of Brazil in Anderson Silva. The two fought on the 11th of May in 2019, and with only 13 seconds left to go in the first round, Jared would take out the UFC star by TKO through leg kicks to win. 4 months after his win against Anderson Silva, his next opponent was Jack Hermansson, and once again, the Killa Gorilla would get another TKO win, this time in the second round and through punches. His 3 TKO stoppage wins gave him a fight against former champion and the number 2 ranked middleweight, Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker, who was keen to get some wins under his belt to work his way back up to a rematch with the style bender, faced Jared on the 24th of October in 2020 in Abu Dhabi. The fight would be a standout performance for Robert, as he would end up putting on a clinic on Jared for 3 rounds, getting the win by unanimous decision after it all. Jared, after the loss, had no hesitation bouncing back, however, as on the 21st of August 2021, he would go on to fight Kelvin Gastelum as the intended opponent. Paulo Costa had to pull out due to an injury, headlining a UFC Fight Night event for ESPN. 5 rounds of war later, he would win the close decision to get the victory. But despite the incredible fight, after in his post-fight speech, he would go on to reveal his struggling financial situation, exclaiming, "I'm broke," in a speech that brought heavy controversy to the UFC. Despite that, he would fight again, this time in February of the next year against Derek Brunson, and true to old Killa Gorilla form, he would go on to win by knockout in the second round, winning him a Performance of the Night bonus. The incredible knockout against Brunson and Israel Adesanya's activity as champion meant Jared later that year would find himself a title shot and an opportunity to change his life. On the 2nd of July in 2022, the two clashed, and in somewhat anticlimactic fashion, it would end up being a chess match between the two. For 5 rounds, both fighters went back and forth. However, the style of fighting played perfectly into the champion Adesanya's specialty and ultimately resulted in in Jared losing through a unanimous decision. Loss aside, however, Jared proved he deserved to be in there with the champion and that his fighting capabilities were indeed world class. And to look on the bright side, it would be Jared's biggest payday by a landslide, finally earning him more than pay to show and bonuses. His last fight before the recording of this video would be against Sean Strickland, and it was a very close fight between the two. After 5 competitive rounds, Jared managed to score the win through a split decision. His upcoming bout on June 18th is set to be against another high-ranked middleweight in Marvin Vettori, and would put him back on track for a rematch for the title. So will Jared Cannonier become a champion in the UFC? We'll tell you in a second, but before we do, we hold a monthly shout-out on this channel, and all you have to do to enter is comment "I subbed" in the comments below. So make sure you comment so you don't miss out. Jared Cannonier definitely has the potential to be the middleweight champion of the UFC, but it is not an easy task. He faces daunting competition in his next opponent, and it's almost as if the whole division is evolving and all the fighters of the middleweight roster are improving as time goes on. One thing's for certain, however, if Jared has any hopes of becoming champion, a definitive win over Vettori would be necessary to give him an opportunity against Robert, or even a direct rematch with the champion. To answer the question we posed at the beginning of the video, Jared Cannonier is one of the few fighters to have wins across 3 weight divisions, and the only to have moved down from heavyweight to middleweight to do so. Very few fighters have wins across multiple weight divisions, and even less so in the 3 heaviest divisions, where the weight limit ranges from 185 pounds as a middleweight to 265 pounds as a heavyweight. After he's moved down to light heavyweight, he faced 2 fighters who would go on to capture the light heavyweight belt, in Glover Teixeira and Jan Blachowicz, all before even having stepped in the cage once as a middleweight and fighting multiple former champions and having his own title shot, making it fair to say that Jared has faced off against the toughest fighters in the UFC regardless of weight division, something very few fighters can say, especially in the heavier weight classes. As usual, we're excited to see what Jared Cannonier has in store for us, and his future potentially challenging for the title again. Let us know your thoughts on who will win in the upcoming fight between Jared and Marvin Vettori in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and goodbye for now.